Good evening, everyone. It's truly special for me to be speaking at TEDx and Symbiosis in Bangalore, a city that once shaped a very important chapter in my life. I moved to Bangalore when I was 18, after having spent my entire life in Dubai. And for anyone who's moved across countries, cultures, or even comfort zones, you know it's not just a change of place. It's a change of identity. Everything, and I mean everything, was different. The people, the food, the culture, the roads were so much busier, and the traffic was, and still is, ambitious to say the least. At first, it felt really overwhelming and chaotic. But slowly, I started noticing something beautiful. Beneath the chaos was a rhythm, an order in the disorder. Life here just kept moving forward. And learning to move with it became my first real lesson in change. Because whether we like it or not, life moves, it breathes. It was never designed to stay still. Our entire human history is proof that stagnation isn't our nature, growth is. And change is often the catalyst for that growth. When we resist change, we often think we're protecting ourselves because the known feels safe. But more often than not, we're trapping ourselves in the past and creating unnecessary suffering. The systems, the values, the beliefs that have shaped us, that we hold on to so tightly today, might not serve us tomorrow, because life evolves, and so must we. But here's where the real challenge is. Our brains love familiarity. Most of our behavior runs on autopilot. Patterns so hardwired in our brains by years of repetition without questioning. We wake up, we think the same thoughts, we do pretty much the same things, we make the same choices, and call it stability. But what if it's not? What if it's just habit? And this is where self-awareness becomes so powerful. Because self-awareness requires humility. The willingness to admit that maybe we don't know it all, and we don't have to. If we think we do, we stop learning. Growth begins when we can ask ourselves questions like, why is it that I think the way I do? Is it because I've been taught to think this way? Is it a case of secondhand judgment? What would happen if I thought about this from an entirely different perspective? Independent thinking is often inconvenient because it's much easier to think and do what we're told to think and do. But at some point, we realize that that has to change. And that need for change rarely arrives dramatically. Often it begins with a quiet feeling that something just no longer fits. a job, a relationship, a routine, even a version of ourselves. When something in our lives stops working for us, it invites us to reflect. Reflection leads to thought. Thought leads to action, and action leads to transformation. It's good to strive towards our goals. It's good to strive towards our ideals. However, perfection isn't some sort of final destination. That's a myth. Real growth is becoming better, a little better than you were yesterday, the year before. However fast or slow doesn't matter. We're all different people with our own unique journeys. We all have different starting points. So the pace doesn't matter, the direction does. This process shouldn't feel like stress, but rather like a path that's shaped by intention and not expectation. And to live with intention, again, we require awareness. Especially of the voices around us, shaping what we think and what we should want. Social media is one of the loudest of those voices. It constantly nudges us to compare, to measure, to wonder if we're falling behind, even though a lot of the people we're comparing ourselves to aren't really following through on what they're putting up and are navigating their own uncertainties outside that frame. When we realize this, comparison just doesn't become unfair. It becomes meaningless and irrelevant. Because your life isn't a race against someone else's highlight reel. It's a relationship with your own becoming. You don't need to play catch up. You just need to keep becoming. And becoming means adapting. Charles Darwin's work observed that survival didn't belong to the most intelligent or the strongest, but rather to the ones most willing to adapt. I'd like you all to take a moment and think of a time in your lives where you were completely outside your comfort zone and how that changed you. You know, discomfort has a very strange way of introducing us to stronger versions of ourselves. It's interesting to see how some of our hardest moments have been our most transformative ones. Don't you think that every time you faced a setback, you almost always came out of it stronger and wiser? It is precisely these moments that teach us what is perhaps one of the most important skills we'll ever need: resilience. Resilience is like a muscle. It becomes stronger every time you train it. Setbacks are part and parcel of the game. What matters is how you return, how you rise, and how you keep going. And resilience just doesn't show up in our emotions or our setbacks. It often appears in the very real-world decisions that affect our everyday lives. there's also another dimension of growth, one that's very real, very human, and often left out of conversations like this. And that's financial independence. Now, I want to frame this very carefully. I'm talking about the physical, lived reality of being human. The reality in which we pay bills, support our families, and make decisions that affect our future. We often hear, money can't buy happiness. And happiness is certainly bigger than money. But money can provide us security. And security gives us the room to breathe. Room to make decisions from intention and not pressure. Room to step away from situations we've outgrown. Room to work toward the future we're trying to build. This isn't about chasing wealth. It's about creating enough stability to support our own growth. And from a very human point of view, I think that that kind of support would give us the courage to meet change with confidence. And when we can meet change with confidence, we stop chasing the idea of a perfect life and start allowing ourselves to grow into a real one. Maybe we aren't here to arrive at some sort of perfect version of ourselves. Maybe we're just here to be more open. Open to learning, open to changing, open to becoming. Because life isn't asking us to have it all figured out. It's asking us to keep evolving. If there's something I'd like for you to take away today, it would be this. You don't need to become someone else to grow. You just need to be you. More and more authentically you. A little wiser, a little braver, a little more open than you were yesterday. Because the measure of intelligence isn't in how much we know, but in how willing we are to learn, adapt, and grow. And if we can do this, we'd not just survive life. We'll evolve with it and thrive in it. Thank you.